May I dream. Peace to the eye. Rastafari. One love.
Tendai Mwali, giving thanks and praises to Moana Kusika, the creator of the universe, through the spirits of Mr. Makudo, our great ancestors, from Bidza Konomaria Africa, to the creator of Africa, be the glory. We say, Abipi Vahodi, African liberation. We also say, Bon, Konba, the keep on with the good and righteous fight, sisters and brothers. Greetings, Galaxy family. You're tuned in to show number 579 of Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. It's a joy to be an African, and it is indeed a joy to be right here on Galaxy Radio. Hosting tonight's program with Brother Kweku, myself, Brother Olatunji. It's Good Jugulia Day, Babylon Monday, the 9th of March, so called, and it is 9 minutes past the hour of 7 p.m. So keep it locked right here on the Big G, GalaxyAfiri.net. Tonight, sisters and brothers on Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on the only D-Brain watching station. What does the Israel-Iran war mean for Africa and Africans? What does the Israel-Iran war mean for Africa and Africans? It's a conjunction she didn't realize, sisters and brothers. US and Israel, Israel, we're calling it, because it is pretty much one and the same anyway. Both beacons of white supremacy and evil, indeed. And without further ado, let me bring to the microphone the co-host for this evening, Brother Kweku. Tell them my brother Kweku.
Tell them my bro.
And our resident guest, Brother Leader Mbandaka, spiritual leader of the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist Movement. Give thanks and praises, tell them my sisters and brothers. I'm going to hand over to my beloved brother here, Brother Kweku, for the synopsis. Tell them my brother Kweku.
Tell them my bro. In spite of claims by the mediator that a deal was within reach, the USA broke off negotiations with Iran to start a bombing campaign on its Persian counterpart for the second time in less than a year. The reasons given for the bombing by the Trump administration have been many, varied, contradictory, and wrapped in a 47-year grievance narrative. The initial strikes from what Trump has called Operation Epic Fury, although commentators have changed this to Operation Epstein Fury in recognition of his ongoing domestic scandal, he's managed to take out Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, as well as other senior figures, including those USA was considering replacing him with, as well as 175 schoolgirls in a school bombing. The war, called illegal by many analysts, has so far proved unpopular with the public in both the USA and UK, where the media, functioning as stenographers for white power, has detailed every strike on Iran, but has made little to no mention of casualties suffered by Israel, except for a handful of troops. But commentators like independent geopolitical and military analyst Jago Bosnick and former intelligence officer Scott Ritter assert that Israel is in fact losing the war. Either way, there are reports that sources briefed on Iran war says United States has no plans for what comes next. Other ways the war is backfiring on Israel is the estimated $1 billion a day cost that could fund food aid, health care for tens of millions, quote unquote. It's not just the USA taking a financial hit. Iran has closed the Straits of Hormuz, a vital oil channel that has already led to global energy prices hikes hitting the pockets of ordinary people. This crisis may also acutely affect Africa. Although a significant producer of crude oil, it is currently rather less developed at refining, requiring a heavy reliance on imports. Once again, increased fuel prices will cut wide and deep. Additionally, there are defense implications for parts of the continent. Iran has a number of security arrangements, such as drone technology, in places like the AES. With the ongoing conflict with Israel, Iran will prioritize its defense capabilities for the war effort, raising the spectre of vulnerability. Africa houses dozens of USA bases that may be brought into play should the conflict continue indefinitely. The reality is that USA's current conduct is consistent with its past, except that whereas before its activities were illicit or cloaked on the language of diplomacy, now they're fogged on out with a saber-rattling narcissistic machismo, bolstered by its own sense of entitled impunity. However, this has failed to impress Iran's Supreme National Council Secretary Ali Larijani, who went viral in his response to talk about a USA ground invasion. He quote, "The valiant sons of Imam Khomeini and Imam Khamenei are waiting for you, ready to disgrace those corrupt American officials by killing and capturing thousands," unquote. So tonight, we ask the question, what does the Rael-Iran war mean for Africa and Africans? 1. Is the notion of international law now dead? 2. Where can we get reliable information about what's really happening in the war? 3. Where will Israel go next? 4. What must Africa do to safeguard itself in this climate? Our special guest is none other than Brother Leader Mbandaka, but we also have with us Brother Tafadzwa Shakara Mbandaka, the son of Brother Leader Mbandaka. Brother Shakara is a father, partner, universal African nationalist, organizer, spoken word activist, writer, cultural scientist, educator, Semitawi, and graduate of the UNIA ACL's course in African philosophy. You can get that from shakaraspeaks.com. Brother Shakara is also director of Kimbunga Media, the UK's #1 conscious platform. And that is on kimbungamedia.com. Tenai Mwari.
Then I might real quick give thanks and praises for that. Our guests are here. So let us proceed. Tendamai Brother Shakara, welcome to Africa Speaks once again.
Tendamwari.
Brother Shakara, welcome to Africa Speaks. So yes, okay, let's start with a broad brush. Because I want to take you back to the message you delivered at Shemira. Really was like a more or less a passing comment. But you did say words to the effect of, if we don't believe that this conflict has nothing to do with us as African people, then obviously we're really on the wrong side of the situation. So what did you mean by
irresponsible, I think the word he used.
What did you mean by that?
First of all, greetings and Tendamwari to Brother Leader.
Tendamwari, son Wawuya, welcome.
Tendamwari, Uncle Tunji, Uncle Kweku, and
Tendamwari.
So, to answer the question, we are Garveyites, and the more we study the life and legacy of the most honorable, the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey, we will learn of his deep interest in the geopolitics of his time. And this is a conviction that he shared with Queen Mama Amy Jakes Garvey. In fact, as she tells it, she was actually very intimately involved in his study of geopolitics and the development of his perspectives on geopolitical matters. And much of what he uttered from the platform was as a result of study and conversation and even some debate that they held together. And he had a word to say about almost any political issue that was taking place in his time. Since that time, especially among us as black nationalist Pan-Africanists, some of us have adopted, for want of a better term, a laissez-faire approach to geopolitics that is usually summed up in the phrase, "This is not our business, this is not our fight." And this is an understandable position to take, because oftentimes, especially in the Pan-African community, we get overzealous with the thing and not only study but want to involve ourselves in everybody's fight and take everybody's fight on our shoulders, often to the detriment of ourselves, often with people that don't have our best interest at heart and are trying to make alliances where they don't naturally exist. And so it's an understandable position to take. It's understandable why many of us have taken that position, especially in light of many of our socialist brothers and sisters in particular, and their zealousness to jump in everybody's battle and act like we have oneness in anti-imperialism, when often that is not the case.
Word.
At the same time, it is not sufficient. As black nationalist Pan-Africanists, we have to develop the sensibility and demonstrate for our people that we can develop, that we can be concerned about what is taking place in the world, that we can study what is taking place in the world, that we can have an analysis of what is taking place in the world, and do so from a critical perspective and from a principled perspective, while defending African interests at the same time. That is a line that we must be able to walk, especially because the world as we know it, the geopolitics of the world as we know it, is intricately intertwined. There is no area of the planet that is completely isolated from another area of the planet as far as geopolitics is concerned. And that position is also dangerous because it will lead us to not study and pay attention to where these conflicts can and will affect African people, based upon how the global economic and political system is connected. And there are many ways in which this impact can take place, which I'm sure we'll get into, but one of them was mentioned in the spec in terms of oil prices, and the extent to which our nations in Africa and the Caribbean are reliant upon the importation of oil. And a word in relation to this on the Caribbean, because it's easy to overlook the Caribbean in this respect, and the fact that among the biggest oil producers in the Caribbean are Guyana, are Venezuela. And much of because a significant amount of oil production comes to this region in the world, obviously the hike in oil prices is also going to affect the Caribbean. But the reality is that America has basically locked down the oil industry in the Americas, because Guyana oil is controlled by America, and now America has the United States has effectively locked down Venezuelan oil, and this has to be considered to be the plan in terms of Venezuela, in terms of why Venezuela was hit first before Iran, because just through sheer necessity, if the rest of the world's oil was on lockdown because of this war, it would be the natural inclination of nations in the Caribbean to seek to find cheaper oil sources within the region. And those would naturally be Guyana and Venezuela, and possibly Venezuela as a primary source because of the fact that Guyana's oil is already wrapped up with ExxonMobil and Chevron and other American oil corporations. And so the lockdown of Venezuelan oil serves to keep our nations in the Caribbean sufficiently more beholden to the whims and the dictates of the United States of America. And so it is not sufficient for us to say, this doesn't concern us. This is not our fight. It may well not be our fight in the direct and immediate sense, but within this fight, African people have a lot to fight for. That's one point. Secondly, we also have to pay attention to the fact that there are Africans in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are Africans in the UAE. There are Africans in Saudi Arabia. There are Africans in Israel. And obviously there are Africans in the United States of America. But as it relates to Iran, there have been Africans in Iran for centuries. Many of whom, or the majority of whom, and we're talking about into the tens and hundreds of thousands, depending on which estimates we read, and but the exact numbers are difficult to come by. But those Africans have been there for centuries as a result of the what they call the Indian Ocean trade and Indian Ocean enslavement trade. And then you also have more recent migrants in the last 100 years or so to Iran from the African continent, who do suffer anti-blackness in Iran and are developing elements of a black consciousness movement as we speak, brothers and sisters. And so that positioning would also lead us to discard the conditions of our people in Iran, who, granted, because of the geopolitics of Iran, there are other so-called minority groups in Iran whose presence is more politically volatile for the Iranian regime. And so they generally feel that they can ignore the African, which in one sense, means that the African is not facing the brunt of repression as far as Iran is concerned. But Africans exist in Iran. And so we have to understand what Africans are doing in Iran, what Africans are saying in Iran, what the conditions of African people are in Iran. And to whatever extent we can connect with our people in Iran, especially as they begin to highlight and assert their Africanness and their blackness within the context of some shape or form, an embryonic black consciousness movement, it is our duty as universal African nationalists, as Garveyites, to be concerned about that and to connect with them as best we can.
Give thanks for that, Shekara.
The Africans that reside in Persia or Iran are not only there for centuries, yeah. The previous name before what we call it now, the ancient name was Elam, and that was a Kushite, ancient African civilization and people. So there are Africans that was there before the coming of these people that are known as Aryans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tenama, give thanks for that. Let's just jump into it as well, is that backdrop, because obviously this war's going on. I'm going to get into that. What is it a war? Because I know some of the American administration been bent over backwards to say it's not a war, it's a limited military whatever. It's nonsense. But anyway, the idea, this concept, this term called international law, does it really have any value, any purpose anymore? Bearing in mind that actually, I suppose we could argue that what America is currently doing is pretty consistent with its history the last couple of 100 years. The only thing that really changed maybe is a stylistic change rather than a content change. So, but is there such a thing, a viable concept called international law anymore, Brother Shakara?
Don't worry. I'm minded to be, I was going to say facetious, but probably not facetious, just honest. And say you use the term anymore as though there ever was a viable concept of international law.
What?
International law is a joke. It's always been a joke. It's always been a euphemism for Euro-American control of the global order. I forget the book. If I remember before the end of the show, I will share it. But there's a book that goes into the creation of the United Nations, which is under whose auspices this kind of concept of international law exists. And the extent to which the United Nations was created as a diplomatic institution to front the power of the United States of America. And the extent to which the United States itself chose which of its dictates it would sign up to and which it would not sign up to, and used it to control and serve its own interests throughout the world in the post-mass European global tribal war II period, along with NATO, along with the IMF, along with the World Bank, the World Trade Organization, etc., etc. The United Nations has definitively been an instrument of white power, and it has, and whenever, and this is proven by the fact that whenever other nations have tried to exert their power within the context of the UN, a context to the letter and spirit of the law of the UN, they have always been met with a fight. It's demonstrated by the fact that by the composition of the UN Security Council, and who are the permanent members and who are the non-permanent members and who has the power of veto, and etc., etc. And so I think what we're seeing is not necessarily the dismantling of international law, but the contradictions of international law being exposed to a greater extent on the international stage because of the fact that there are more voices operating in the United Nations. A couple years ago, year before last, when it came to Israel, Gaza, there's a UN lawyer, and his name is skipping me at the moment. I'll remember it in a second. But he had an interview on CNN, and he was being hounded because he was using the international law to come after Israel and Netanyahu, in particular, for war crimes as it relates to their actions in Gaza. Now, note that this was not coming after Israel in isolation. This was coming after Israel as well as Hamas and leaders of Hamas and Benjamin Netanyahu. And
was it Karim Khan?
Karim Khan, yes, yeah. And the white world were incensed that Netanyahu could be brought, whose name could be called within the context of war crimes alongside names from Hamas. And this lawyer said in so many words that he has been attacked and that he has been hounded and that he has been threatened and that he's been told in so many words that this court, the ICJ, which is the court one of the courts connected to the UN, is for Africa and other developing nations. Yeah, you're not supposed to use this to go after Britain and America and France and all them things there. That's not supposed to go on. So international law has always been a joke, but because of the fact that the Western world has to at least present the pretense of justice, it means that voices from the so-called third world have a greater presence in the United Nations, to the extent that if the United Nations was to be what it says it is, it would lead to a situation in which U.S. presidents and officials, U.S. war generals and field marshals, British prime ministers and lords and generals, as well as the French and the whole of Europe, would find themselves in very difficult positions as it relates to justice, as it relates to Africans, as it relates to Africans in the Caribbean, as it relates to the people of Asia and the people of Arabia, and so on and so forth. And so the US understands that in order to protect white power from the institutions that it created itself, it has to basically mash up the law book, yeah, and destroy it, and basically betray it in the most blatant and most obvious ways. Like, back in the day, they used to do it subtly, you know? You know what I'm saying? Find some justification. I guess like the war on terrorism and the war in Iraq was the last time they went to great lengths to justify the war, and they were exposed to be lying at that point. And so now they could just do away with the pretense. Yeah? Trump just tell you straight, we're doing this because we want the oil. Bomb Venezuela. Yeah, we're doing this because we want this defend American interests, and Iran can't have no president or no supreme leader, prime minister or no supreme leader when me no sanction. I'll tell you straight.
Shakara.
Yeah, so it's tell me where.
Are they being more straightforward because of the social media? They cannot hide themselves, where before they would have media.
That too. We know that, for example, as far as Gaza is concerned, it's a good, as far as media and public relations. The war on Gaza, Israel's war on Gaza over the last couple of years, is a very good case study, because of the extent to which social media has been used as evidence against the claims of Israel and the United States of America. And so that's a part of what I'm referring to. That the people, some of the people them in Gaza, some of them have representation in the halls of the United Nations, and they are at least principled enough or allegiant enough to their people to at least say, well, this not right. We can't accept this thing. Yeah. And that could potentially be embarrassing for the United States and background imperialism in general, if they allow for that institution to take any of the reins of what people see as justice and the administration of justice.
But now you're saying
rules-based order was always a myth, but they have just chosen now to expose how much of a myth it was. And I also think, sorry, just to make this last point, that a part of the disruption is deliberate, because America realizes that it can't hold down the entire white world by itself anymore. Yeah, and so it's forcing Europe in particular, and the white world in general, Canada, Australia, etc., all these places that the people have gone and massacred and genocided against people, to the east. It's forcing them in a position whereby they have to remilitarize and bolster white power on the global scene, because America can't hold down the empire by itself as it has been doing for the last 60, 70 years in the same way. So it requires them to have to rip up the institutions and start something new that will again protect and serve their interests as a collective white world.
I hear the point, but it's a bit of a paradox, because America isn't really acting like a reliable ally to the white world at the moment.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it. But this is the thing: America never has, in the sense of the fact that.
Go on.
Right. Let's look at Iran's history. Yeah, because and I'm minded, brother leader is here, you know. So do chip in anytime you want, brother leader. With a contribution.
Yeah,
but
I'm here. I'm listening.
But so now the narrative says that Mossadegh in Iran in the 50s came to power and wanted to nationalize
the oil.
Iran's oil.
Yeah.
And America didn't like that move, and so they funded and orchestrated the overthrow of Mossadegh and the return of the Shah, and the Shah serving the interests of the white world in Iran. Yes? But what is often left out of that story is the fact that prior to Mossadegh, the people that were in control of Iran's oil were the British, not the Americans. Yes? It was the British Iranian Oil Company that was running things as far as Iran's oil is concerned up until the 1950s. What happened is that when Mossadegh was deposed and the Shah was installed, America used the upheaval and was able to negotiate with the Shah to allow American corporations and British corporations to control the oil. Why? Because there was a significant discontent with Iranian oil being controlled by the British and the British corporations. The anti-colonial rhetoric of America was able to be used, that it subdued the fight of the people to the extent that they thought, okay, at least it's not the British. This is the same thing, incidentally, that Papa Omowale Malcolm X was warning African heads of state.
That sounds like an oxymoron. Anti-colonial rhetoric of America.
Well, yeah, right. But it's real in the sense of the fact that America went around the world because they were not Britain, because they were not France, and did not have a direct colonial history.
Except Haiti.
As far as the planet is concerned, as far as other nations on the planet is concerned, they were able to use that to sell themselves to the so-called developing nations who are overcoming and coming from under the colonial domination of Western Europe, effectively. And so a similar plan. This is why it's important for us to study these matters, brothers and sisters, because we will see how the same games are played on other people. Doesn't necessarily make those people our friend or our allies. It just means that we understand our enemies better. Yes, that's what it may just mean that. Yeah, and so after the Shah was installed, American corporations now come in alongside British corporations and dominate Iranian oil. But initially, it was British oil interests that were being protected because British oil interests were in danger. And this was a problem for America because America needed a strong Britain and as one of the strongest, if not the strongest nation in Europe at that time, because it needed a strong Western Europe economically for it to be able to sell its own wares on the international stage, for it to market itself on the international stage. And that began with, to a significant degree, with Europe and controlling the region of the Americas at the same time as well. So America has always, especially since Mass European Tribal War II, used Europe to facilitate its own interest. And that was all well and good for Europe because they recognized the fact that America's interests, because it was in that power position, were their interests. Yeah? And so every now and then they have a beef, a kerfuffle. When Reagan invaded Grenada, Maggie wasn't pleased. Maggie was vexed. Said, "Yeah, infringed upon our interests in other place, but never to the extent that the interests of the African would be served as a result of her discontent." They patched it up very, very quickly, and she said, "Well, next time you're gonna do them something there, you have to let me know first." You know what I'm saying? And all these things. That's how it goes. So there has always been these fractures. It looks more obvious to us now because of the manner and the personality of Donald Trump. But there have always been those things. And one final point on this. Recently. It was Trump who said that Keir Starmer is no Winston Churchill, and he's saying that because of the extent to which Churchill bowed to American interests, because it served Britain at the time, right? He understood that the white world needed a strong America, and America understood that the white world needed a strong Western Europe. Yeah, and so there was beef, and they had discontent at certain points. But at the end of the day, white power and the sustenance of white power was what was most important to them. And they are very capable of putting aside their differences to maintain that order. And I'm sure that was the subtext of the recent conversation between Trump and Starmer that happened, I believe, sometime in the last 24 hours. That one.
Yeah, give thanks and praise. We're going to go to Brother Leader. Before we do that, though, Brother Leader, we're going to go to some of the messages that are coming, Brother Quaker.
Yes, we got Kwame Abuaje.
Brother Kwame.
Tendai Mari Kings and Queens. As a Pan-Africanist and Nkrumahist for 32 years, I am going to be brutally honest that if we as Africans are attacked, it totally concerns me and affects me. I will sympathize with non-Africans being attacked, but it isn't relevant. My colleague, Brother Shakara Mbandaka, can agree or disagree with me that the African Holocaust against Africans globally is my national and international concern. These beasts exploit our oils in Sudan and Nigeria because most of our leaders in Africa are good-for-nothing, chicken-pecking stooges. Yes, there are Africans in the Middle East, but most of them disregard them as Africans. But Arabs remember that. Just Africans in the West don't regard them as Africans, but Europeans. Tendai Brother Kwame Abuaje. We've got another one from 901. 901 says, Tenai please critique Marco Rubio's speech in Munich. Tenai
Then I'm right. Give thanks and praises for those two texts. You two, sisters and brothers, can text WhatsApp, Telegram on 07947479219. Let's go over.
Sorry, just a quick thing on that last text. Reviewing Marco Rubio's speech in Munich. Because it relates to the last point that was made. Marco Rubio told the people them straight that America will always be a child of Europe. America is and will always remain a child of Europe. So Trump can be vexed. Yes, and this is Trump's own Secretary of State speaking. And he has had cause to disavow the statements of his Secretary of State recently. He did not have disavowed that statement. Right? So them know all the thing go.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were some other very choice sound bites from that speech. Maybe you can get to some of those as well. But let's go over to Brother Leader Mbandaka. Greeting, Brother Leader. Welcome to Africa Speak. Welcome back, I should say, because you were here already.
Tatenda.
I don't know if you wanna. I don't know if you heard the Marco Rubio speech. If you had any comments on that, or if you want to just go into the general response to this limited military conflict that is definitely not a war in Iran.
Tendai Mwari. No, I haven't heard the Marco Rubio speech. I've heard comments about the Marco Rubio speech, and I am made to understand that. By the way, let me just hail Shakara for the powerful insight and analysis that he has so far given us, as per usual. It's great to have him on the show, as always. But let me just say, I do understand that Marco Rubio made it very clear that it was that this campaign against Iraq, this military campaign against Iran, was initiated by Israel.
Well, he did on one day. Then the next day he said he wasn't.
That was after his president had spoken and tried and contradicted what he said. So I think that's what he was probably instructed to do. But originally, he stated that it was initiated by Israel and then supported by America, even though his president said something different. But that's very important. I'll come back to that. I do want to just tweak just a couple of things that Brother Shakara shared with us already. One of them is in relation to the invasion of Iran in 1953 and the overthrow of Mohammed Mossadegh, the then president of or prime minister of Iran at the time, that it was actually led by Britain, and Britain had engaged America to assume the role of orchestrating the overthrow, because Britain had been sacked from Iran at the time by the Mossadegh government, and if I remember correctly, the British embassy was closed down, but the American embassy remained in Iran, and Britain was working through the American embassy, working with the Americans and working through the American embassy in orchestrating the overthrow, the sabotage of the Iran economy and society, and the overthrow of the Iranian government by orchestrating what you call demonstrations, actually paying mainly young people, to go out on the streets and demonstrate and protest and cause disruption and mash up shops and stores and what have you. Young people were actually paid to do this, to disrupt the society. So I just wanted to say it was really orchestrated by the British, but using the American embassy because of the British being sacked from Iran at the time, and because the Iranians had taken back their own oil interests from the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. I also want to just also highlight that the leading oil company in the Caribbean, the leading oil producing nation in the Caribbean is in fact Trinidad and Tobago. And even though the oil is supposed to be mainly state controlled, it is still dominated. The production of oil in Trinidad and Tobago is still dominated by foreign companies like BP and Shell and another one called EOG and so on. So I just wanted to emphasize that would also fit into the analysis that we've had from Brother Shakara this evening. So let me say that I'm paused there. And are there any questions that you want to ask me at this point, Brother Olatunji?
Or really just your analysis on what's happening with the war, let's call it that, in Iran. And also, I don't know if you've got any comments on the media coverage, because when you look at the mainstream media, you hear that this has been leaked in Iran, that's been leaked in Iran, that's been leaked in Iran, and maybe you'll hear about this been leaked in Qatar, this has been leaked in Kuwait, but we don't hear about any casualties to America apart from 7 soldiers, and we heard a handful of people died in 7 now. 7, yeah, they upped it to 7 yesterday, and we don't hear about any. I think there's about 10 people we've heard of that have died in Israel. But so in terms of the war narrative and just generally what's going on, and also the very different, very varied and contradictory rationale for this war. Like I said, Rubio said this one day, he said something else the next day. Then they said, oh, it's about regime change. No, it's about saving the people of Iran. It's about, stopping from nuclear weapons. No, stopping from getting ballistic missiles. Just any general overview of actually how this war is being prosecuted, and how you feel it's going from either point of view.
Let me pick up from the conflict and who is supposed to be winning and who is not supposed to be winning, and who licking who and who not licking who. Mm-hmm. If we were to listen to the European media, we would get what you just said. Quite right. What you just said is being reported. The impression is being given that big bad mighty America and Israel are dominating this campaign and inflicting tremendous wounds on Iran, and there's no reporting about the effect that Iran's retaliation is having on America and its bases in the region and Israel. But if we listen to someone like Scott Ritter, who is a war veteran and a critique of the American government, American foreign policy, American militarism, he is quite clear from his observation that Iran is inflicting tremendous damage on Israel and on the allies, the nations such as the nations who are allies in the area, such as the United Arab Emirates, and some of the other areas, Bahrain and so on. That tremendous damage is being done to these countries. Israel in particular has been hit very hard. According to Scott Ritter, the strategy that the Iranians are using, first of all, by unleashing some of their less powerful weapons to exhaust American and Israeli
defense.
Sorry?
Missiles.
Defense.
Yeah,
Defense. In order that when they unleashed and they've started to unleash the more powerful weapons, and the success of the strategy is beginning to manifest, and significant damage is being done. As far as he's concerned, the American establishment and the Israeli establishment are worried because they are seeing signs that Iran is not only capable of defending itself, but it's clear that Iran has been expecting this attack for 20 years at least, and has been planning strategically, and is responding in a manner that the Americans and the Israelis were not prepared for. So, as I said, this is an ex-U.S. war veteran who has now become a critique of his own government and its foreign policy and its militarism, because he sees the injustice, he sees the craziness, he sees the recklessness in how America has been acting around the world, and how Israel is acting in the so-called Middle East, how Israel has acted in Palestine, and he's become a critique of that. Can I just say also, the main question that we're asking is the implication of this war for Africa and African people.
Yes.
And
just to kind of follow up on what you said about even the reporting, because when we hear about the strikes from Iran into places like the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait and Bahrain, etc., it's been reported like, well, they're just licking out on these countries, but they're actually going after American military targets.
Military targets.
I know there's one instance where they're supposed to hit a hotel, but then it's revealed the hotel was used by the CIA. So even that reporting, actually they're just willy-nilly just bombing civilians in these countries, and it's not the case. They're actually going after military targets.
And of course, what the British media and the American media have not reported on is the civilian targets that they have been hitting in Iran, including a school, killing 100 and I think you touched on it on the spec.
Yeah,
killing 165 children. Yeah, killing teachers and wounding upwards of 100 other children in that school, which is vicious and murderous.
In the last couple of days, they've hit a desalination plant. They're hitting refineries. So basically, it's like it's raining oil at the moment in Iran because of the way that so they're really going after civilian infrastructure targets now as well in Iran.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's important.
Which is against the war. It's
war crime.
Yeah. International humanitarian laws against that.
Yeah, but we've already kind of,
No, I'm in terms of humanitarian, in terms of war. When you're in war, you're not supposed to be doing anything targeting civilians.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. But clearly, the attack on Iran has been indiscriminate. Another point which is worth noting is that even though, according to American media and British media reports, or the global white supremacist media reports, they've taken out not only the supreme leader of Iran, but at least 48 government officials. And they're supposed to be top government officials, and there's supposed to be another layer of government officials that have been taken out. But what is to be noted is that the country is still able to maintain its defense effectively against the most powerful military force on the planet, and what supposedly is the most powerful military force in the region, and inflict significant wounds or military wounds on both countries, which means that they're still able to function. If they're able to defend themselves so powerfully, they're still able to function as a nation. They're still able to hold themselves together as a nation. So again, we are not getting those reports. We are getting reports that would suggest that any minute now, Iran is going to implode. Iran is going to capitulate, and according to observers, critical observers, this is far from being the case. In fact, it might be the case that America, if not Israel, is in a dilemma now about whether, in fact, there's been some noises on the part of Trump that he's ready to negotiate. Having killed the supreme leader and taken out 48 of their officials, he's now ready to negotiate. And that was a euphemism for him recognizing that what he's up against is far more powerful than that even he had expected. Yeah.
Well, according to BBC, let me just quickly say, according to BBC, their headline is Trump suggests US could end Iran war soon.
Yes, well, apparently that's a monumental myth. Yeah. If I am to be guided by some of the critiques that I've been hearing, some of the critical analysis I've been hearing about the situation, that's far from being the truth.
Well, I think you have to look at it in terms of Trump speak, and I think as he said last year, how they obliterated their nuclear capabilities. I just think he means he wants to end it and get out. That's what I think that means.
Well, exactly.
And make it seem like a victory.
All this talk about boots on the ground. If apparently that would be a colossal error on the part of America if they put boots on the ground in Iran.
Would you see that Iran senior official? He said, "Bring them, come."
Yeah, Iran is not Iraq or even Syria, and Syria was tough work. It took over a decade to break Syria. Yeah, it will take a much longer time, if at all possible, to break Iran, according to reports. That seems very credible. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the question of the impact of this campaign on African people, we have to really ask ourselves, what is really at the root of all of this? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we know that oil interest is a significant factor. We know that it's a significant factor. But is that the most important factor? Is it the only factor? The evidence suggests that it is not the only factor, or may not even be the most important factor. And that an even more important factor might well be Israel's vision of building or creating a greater Israel, the Greater Israel Project. Yeah? And the Greater Israel Project is about expanding Israel's boundaries within the region. And if we are to believe that, and it sounds credible, and this is a project that has been in the pipeline from at least the 1950s, 60s, somewhere around there, at least from that time, there's been talk about expanding Israel. There's been talk about a vision of a Greater Israel Project. Then we must remind ourselves that part of that Greater Israel Project, part of that ambition of Israel to expand itself, includes, as they say, from the Nile River to the Euphrates. The Nile River will include Africa, specifically Egypt. That is their main focus, on Egypt. Egypt is Africa. There's a myth that Egypt is not Africa. Yeah? And the Greater Israel Project idea plays into that myth. And it's conceivable that the Israelis believe that they have some divine claim to Egypt. Yeah?
It was promised them a few thousand years ago, bro, leader.
Well, there you go. And the Bible says this and the Bible says that. Yeah? But we have to take that seriously as African people.
Well, bearing in mind as well that the American ambassador to Israel pretty much said that's fine with him if Israel took over the whole place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because he knows for a fact that is the plan that is afoot where Israel is concerned. And that is why they have to neutralize any opposing forces in the region. And the most powerful of the opposing forces is Iran. I want to also remind us of public statements that were made by one General Wesley Clark in respect of conversations that he had with leading figures, or one particular leading figure within the Joint Chief of Staff, one of the generals within the Joint Chief of Staff, shortly after 9/11. In fact, he says 10 days after 9/11. He had a conversation with one of the generals of the Joint Chief of Staff, who informed them, this is 10 days after 9/11. 9/11 happened in 2001. And he informed him 10 days after that he has been instructed that America is intending to go to war with Afghanistan. So that this General Wesley Clark is attesting that since the 20th of September 2001, he was aware of a plan that was in place to invade Afghanistan. It didn't happen until I think it was March 2003, but it was already on paper from at least September. Well, he became aware of it in September 2001. And he said a few weeks later, in a conversation with the same leading general of the U.S. Joint Chief of Staff, he informed him that the American government is planning to take out 7 countries in 5 years. And the 7 countries included Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. Note 3 African countries are named, and all 3 African countries have been invaded either directly or indirectly by America since then. some of those countries were already invaded before then. We know that Somalia was invaded in 1993 by the Clinton government. We know that Sudan was bombed in 1998. The Al-Shifa pharmaceutical factory was bombed on the pretext that it was creating weapons of mass destruction.
Chemical weapons.
Yeah. So those are indications of the implication of the campaign against the attack on Iran and the implications for Africa. There are serious implications for us as African people, in addition to what Shakara has already shared with us, that there are Africans living in these places. And that's what we must always remember. But we must also remember that Israel has its eye on the African continent. Israel is a project of Zionism. Zionism is a global movement. And it's a global movement that has ambitions of taking control of the entire planet. It is at the core of the New World Order project. It is driven by Zionism. Zionism is at the core of the banking system, which stands at the apex of the power structure, the configuration, the power configuration that we see in the world today. And it's from that perspective that we need to understand what is happening in Iran and its implications for us as African people. Zionism was at the core of and involved, for instance, in the oppression of our people in South Africa, the apartheid system in South Africa. Equally, you could call it the Rhodesian system. The Rhodesian system of oppression in Zimbabwe was also undergirded by Zionism. And it's important that we understand this. It's important that we understand that reports attest that Mossad was involved in the overthrow of the Osage for Kwame Nkrumah. Mossad was involved in, according to reports, in the overthrow of Patrice Lumumba. The two most critical events of the 1960s that set Africa back hundreds of years. That we need as African people to understand. So this is, when we see what is happening in Iran, we cannot sit back and say it's got nothing to do with us. It has implications for us. It has economic implications for us because of the way the world economy is configured. It is going to affect the distribution, production and distribution of energy, which Africa, as well as other parts of the world, rely upon. And once you have energy bills going up, everything else goes up. And we know how poverty and destitution ravages the African continent and the lives of African people in Europe, in Britain, in America. It will always be the case that if cost of living goes up in these countries, if you have economic hardship, we are going to face the brunt of it. So it has implications, serious implications for us as African people. It has serious implications for the African continent. Israel has ambitions to infiltrate the African continent. Israel has been vying for a seat in the AU. Israel has thanked Paul Kagame for reopening the African continent. Right? That character Netanyahu has stated, has thanked Kagame for opening up the African continent, because the African continent had developed a mistrust of Israel. Yeah? And had closed it not officially or unofficially. Certain countries were not open to Israel. Now the continent is opening according, if we are to believe what Netanyahu says. The continent is now reopening to Israel. And that spells danger. Whoever controls Africa rules the world. Let me pause there for the moment. Much more to say, but let me pause there for the moment.
When you're mentioning about the implication, the economic implication on Africa, even though they say Africa is the youngest population, they say it's up to 70% of Africans are in extreme poverty, living in extreme poverty. Can you imagine? 1.4 billion and 70% are in extreme poverty.
Tell why. Could I just add something to what Brother Lee was saying in terms of the implications?
Go ahead, bro.
For the African continent. The two very quick things. I think the first is, when it comes to Sudan, we have to understand the very precarious nature of how this situation can impact Sudan. All of the nations, or most of the nations that are involved in this war at the moment, have some kind of interest in Sudan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Iran and the UAE in particular. Because of the fact that it is known that the UAE is supporting the rapid support forces that are wreaking havoc on the people of Sudan at the moment, to the point that even though the people recognize the Sudanese army as an oppressive force, many are hoping, I would say the majority, based upon the reports that I know of, are hoping that the Sudanese army actually win that war because of the level of brutality of the rapid support forces, and those forces are being funded to a significant degree by the UAE, and the UAE is receiving a whole heap of gold from Sudan. So it's a very precarious situation, but also it has been reported in some quarters that Iran used to use Sudan as a port, a discreet port for sending arms to Gaza. And that drew the interest of Israel. And so Israeli intelligence is very much present in Sudan. Yeah? And so we have to bear all of those things in mind. And East Africa in general is in danger of being brought into this thing because of you mentioned the Strait of Hormuz. But there's also the Bab el-Mandeb Strait.
Yeah, Bab el-Mandeb Strait,
right.
Yeah.
So that affects East Africa in general, yeah. And so the nations that are affected by that are Ethiopia, Eritrea, Kenya, Somalia, Tanzania, and possibly above all Djibouti, yeah. And it's easy to overlook Djibouti, but Djibouti is central and important because of the fact that it hosts the main U.S. military base in the region.
In the bases,
African
bases.
Few. Sorry, you're correct. Bases, right? But not only U.S. There's also a Chinese naval base in Djibouti, and the French and Japanese have a.
Where do Djibouti live in the sea? Squeeze himself around all these military bases.
Exactly. Djibouti relatively is not a very big nation, right? So you must know. Yeah, but so we don't know how China is going to move. China generally tries to keep itself out, at least directly, out of conflicts in military conflicts. At the same time, China has one official military base in the entire world, and that military base is in Djibouti. Right? So that's an interesting fact, possibly for another time. So Djibouti therefore becomes America's primary base as far as East Africa is concerned. And because of its positioning, because of its connection to various important ports, we're going to find an increase of military presence of America in Djibouti, and them exerting their military might to ensure that particularly the region of East Africa, the nations that I've mentioned, will act in America's interest. All right, so all of these things bring up a whole heap of questions, all of which we won't be able to answer. But the interests of these so-called Gulf states and many of the wars that are being fought in East Africa right about now are very, very well represented in terms of the interests of these Gulf states. So we have to pay attention to all of these dynamics.
Give thanks for that.
Yeah, some very, very important points there from Shakara, especially the point about the Babel Mandate and the importance of that and its proximity to the Horn of Africa is a very, very important point that needs to be registered. Another point in relation to the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, is that in addition to their interest in gold, there's also agricultural interest. They have massive agricultural interest in the Sudan. Yeah, it also needs to be understood. They have control of thousands, hundreds of thousands of acres of arable land in Sudan for agricultural purposes. Yeah, that also needs to be understood because it is also very significant. That means that they have even greater interest because that is their source, their primary source of food security for the United Arab Emirates.
Okay.
Tenamai, Shakara, regarding the rapid, Sudan's rapid deployment force or rapid support force, have you heard Ethiopia?
Rapid support force.
Yeah. Have you heard Ethiopia? Yeah. Ethiopia is involved in training and supporting them now?
I would say that I have. That's not something I've heard. So it's something to study. So that's something that I need to look into.
Okay.
All right, well, let's open a line, sisters and brothers. You can get us on 0203 576 1786 0203 576 1786 or on the WhatsApp line on 07495 395 360 07495 395 360. We're asking the question: the Israel-Iran war, what does it mean for Africans and Africa? Brother Kweku, we've got a message coming.
Yeah, we've got one more from Brother Kwame Obwaje. Tonight, Mari again. What makes it so sad when Africans are going to Israel and ignorantly buying the hype that Israel is the so-called Holy Land? Do you remember when that clown ex-president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, accepting that beast Benjamin Netanyahu hospitality and funds? Plus, Uncle Paul Kagame is a neo-colonialist and not a Pan-Africanist, as Brother Kwame Obwaje.
And he's not our uncle. He's not our uncle either.
Well, maybe his Brother Kwame's uncle. We don't know.
Well, if he was my uncle, I would have renounced him.
Indeed. Let's go to be a bit clearer. Tell him, my brother Shakara.
Sorry, just a quick thing. One thing I forgot to mention in terms of implications is the fact that with the disruption in oil, and as Brother Leader said, we cannot underestimate the implications of the oil thing because it affects everything.
Yeah.
Transport, food, everything. Because it's an energy source. One implication that I have come across is little more than a speculation, but a reasonable one. That because of this disruption, the United States in particular and Europe in general are going to look for other sources to make up for what they're not getting from the quote-unquote Gulf region, Iran, and so on and so forth, and the lockdown of the Straits of Hormuz. And so it's possible that they will use this to present a deal to Africa under the narrative of the Africa Rising narrative, that they're going to invest in our oil production.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And other energy sources like liquefied natural gas.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
And these things. And so we have to be mindful of that one too, because that one spells increased economic warfare on the African continent.
Okay.
There are many nations that will be subject to
very pertinent point, Brother Shaka.
Give thanks for that. Let's go to the phone line. To Brother Kwame on the line. Welcome to Africa Speak. What's your contribution?
Right. What's it?
What's up?
I would like to say I agree with the line that Brother Shakara and Brother Leader Mbandaka is taking. Yeah, in that it has everything to do with African people. Yeah? But if one can see, the USA dollar is in very serious trouble. Because don't forget, they're what, $7 trillion dollars in debt? Something to that effect? Is it 7 trillion?
Sorry,
now,
Tenamari?
Now, remember now, Donald Trump.
I believe the 7 trillion is UK's debt. I think America's debt is upwards of 30 odd trillion.
Okay. Right. You could be right, Brother Leader.
I stand corrected if I'm pretty sure 7 trillion.
But anyway, the point I'm making.
Debt.
Remember, so all the tariff business was about shaking down people, for money. Yeah? And also what is also taking place is that there's a chess game being played. And part of the chess game is China is becoming the world's largest economy. And the white world don't want that to happen. So hence, they cut off Venezuela oil. Hence, they're coming for Iran's oil. You know what I'm saying? So that is one way of trying to starve China, to slow down China's growth. But I think China might have enough in storage, to keep going. Because, those Chinese people, they don't think like, say, we Africans, think of a little piece and this is it. Them think, large. Right. I did write down a few pointers. Let me just go over them before I come off the line.
Before you do that, let me just confirm America's debt, 38.59 trillion.
Whoa. Yeah. So, they're in real serious trouble. Yeah. And I mean, look at the way they shake down Venezuela, yeah? And you don't hear a word out of their fellow Europeans by saying, that's not on. All right. Okay. Also, as you know, what they call the military complex is also a way of boosting the economy. Hence, they're going into Iran. Yeah. And Israel have its own reason. I.e., they want to take over the area. Yeah, that's Israel's thing. But USA have their own reason for going in. All right, let me stop there because all right, something I can't see my writing properly.
Know the feeling, bro.
Get the glasses, man. Specsavers, bro.
Glasses may not even help sometimes. Depends on the writing itself, not the size.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. The doctors,
you know what I'm saying?
Doctor stuff.
Yeah, I think I made a point.
No problem.
The USA is in trouble. Trump is shaking on people for money. The war. Going into war is a way of boosting their economy. Mm-hmm. And China, they see China as a threat, and they're trying to just make China.
I think that's a very, very key one. That China.
Okay, I don't know if you realize, but Israel has also bought some land in Kenya. So when I say Israel, I mean some Israelis has bought some piece of land in Kenya.
Mm-hmm. I know they're going for Uganda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was supposed to be Israel.
Yeah,
at one point.
I know.
So yeah. Okay, but yeah, I mean, but the irony is, I don't think actually the wars actually do benefit the American economy. They benefit certain sectors of the economy, because this thing is costing them $1 billion a day. And that's not benefiting anybody in America, most of the people in America. But the
armament manufacturers
it benefits a particular sector.
Yeah.
And that doesn't trickle down like the economic program. Let me just see. Give Frank that, brother Kwame. Let me go to
sorry, let me just make the last point.
Go ahead, bro.
Remember last strong or the strong before, Israel recognized Somaliland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, that's it.
Yeah. No, certainly very important, because that's not a thing out on its own. Let's go to the brother Kwame on the WhatsApp line.
It's been a great show, very well informed, and I think people need to understand what's going on. And for me, this does affect us. So unlike Gaza, Palestine, where I had my reservations, and I still do to a degree, this war, so-called war, has been a manufactured war in Iran, has a lot of effect on us. And, one thing that we need to add also is that has been said already, our people are there in Iran, particularly in southern Iran, and, they face, a semi-apartheid existence, just like our people in Brazil and Argentina. So I'm not on the side of Iran, definitely not, because even this new Ayatollah and the one before that, they did not really, have any appreciate love for the Africans in Iran. So I haven't got time for Iran, but our people are there, so it is a concern. Neither do I have anything for America or Israel. But what we need to understand, the nature of this war, is that, this war is about the petrodollar. Yeah, and we need to understand as Africans the significance of the petrodollar. The petrodollar is the undergirding, is the foundation of white supremacy or white terrorism, on this planet. And that is the foundation of this world order, because without the petrodollar, the Euro-America, Judeo, or rather Euro-America, but you don't put Judeo as well, system collapses, because that petrodollar is the foundation of this system of capitalism. Why do you think everything is priced in US dollars? Gold, coffee, cocoa, timber, cotton, oil, diamonds, platinum. Why do you think it's priced in US dollars? Because that gives America the hegemony and white terrorism to rule over the world via their military complex. So the petrodollar is the key. And this is why, when we look at history, this is why Nkrumah was taken out. But I'll come to Nkrumah in a minute. This is why Lumumba was taken out, because of his nationalization project to nationalize the mines in DR Congo that would have a direct effect on the petrodollar. This is why Mohammed Mossadegh, as you mentioned tonight, was taken out, because his nationalization of the Iran's oil would be a direct threat to the petrodollar. This is why Saddam was taken out, because he wanted to sell oil in euros, and that again will threaten the petrodollar. This is why he was taken out, not because he was killing his own people, not because he had the weapons of mass destruction, but because it was a threat to the petrodollar. And this is why even recently, or rather before that, Gaddafi was on the route to build an African single currency with gold that would directly threaten the petrodollar. This is why Gaddafi has been taken out. Maduro was selling oil in euros and yuan. Again, direct threat to the petrodollar. That's why he was kidnapped and taken out. And even Iran, the reason why they've got Iran right now is because Iran, under the cover, has been selling oil in Chinese yuan and euros. Again, affects the petrodollar. So this war had to be constructed, because any threat to the petrodollar, which is the undergirding, the foundation of white terrorism, this is the response. Now, where Africa is concerned, why it is, we are involved, whether we like it or not. So, like I said, one, our people are there already, but most importantly, two, it's about African sovereignty and about Africa's energy security. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So, the great Asadi for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, he built the Tema Oil Refinery 45 years before Ghana became an oil producer. Why? Because Asadi was in tune with the ancestors. The ancestors told Asadi to build Tema Oil Refinery. Yeah? Because Nkrumah wanted Ghana to avoid dependency on foreign oil companies, price manipulation, colonial-style supply chains, i.e. Strait of Hormuz and others, and also why he wanted the refinery, more importantly, it's about Ghana could control sovereignty over its critical resource. And again, the macro effect of that, with that oil, that Tema Oil Refinery, right, will be to supply oil to neighboring African countries like Togo, Benin, Burkina Faso, and Cote d'Ivoire. So this is to position Ghana as a major industrial power. That oil refinery has more or less sat idle, right, for more than 50 years. It's only now that Mohammed's trying to, resurrect it, euphemistically. And so that is why this is effective, because right now Ghana and many other African, oil producers like Nigeria, Angola, Congo, Brazil, etc., they import oil because there's hardly any oil infrastructure like refinery. It's just now that in Nigeria, Dangote, after all this time, Dangote, I think, is on the cusp of building an oil refinery in Nigeria. Yeah? And that's very apt because, again, another reason why it's important to Africa is because, for example, in West Africa, there's a West Africa gas pipeline, yeah, that supplies gas, natural gas and LPG to Ghana, Benin, Togo, and Nigeria. Unfortunately, most of the natural gas comes from Qatar. And as we see in this war, Qatar has been bombed. So, that is going to affect supplies of gas, yeah, to West Africa. And many Africans use gas for, cooking. Many Africans use gas in their cars, particularly taxi drivers, they use gas, LPG gas in their cars. So that's going to affect us. And like I think Shakira said already, when the price of oil goes up, that affects everything. Food, transport, rent, school fees. And that affects the very poor of the poor in Ghana, Nigeria, Togo, wherever you are. East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, they import LPG from that region that we're talking about right now because of lack of domestic gas due to lack of infrastructure. So again, if this war prolongs, right, that's going to affect the amount of gas that comes through to East Africa. And that will obviously have disastrous effect on their economy, right, which will affect many Africans on the ground. And finally, in Southern Africa, right, South Africa, even though it's supposedly Africa's biggest economy, right, South Africa imports a lot of natural liquefied gas because South Africa, with all its diamonds and gold, etc., has no natural gas reserves. Again, has to import it from that part of the world. So if this war prolongs, right, you will get a situation where technically the lights go off in many African countries. Even right now in Tanzania, there's been a power crisis for about 2-3 years. Yeah, that's gonna even intensify if this war says no sign of ending. And we see oil right now surpass $100 for the first time in 4 years. So this has an effect on our strategic as well as sovereignty rights to control oil, and more importantly, our ability to become energy secure. Yeah, because what Nkrumah feared is that if we didn't have our own, pipelines and refineries, we would be dependent on the enemy to supply the oil that we need for our subsistence. And finally, on this, the solution to this, we don't need the RPG. We don't need the oil. We can use like Malaysia. Malaysia have been using palm oil, from the palm nut, yeah, to use biodiesel to power their cars and to power the industry. And guess what? Where did they get the palm oil from? from Ghana, Rawlings. Rawlings gave it to them. So, and across the continent, palm oil or palm nut is in abundance, as well as coconut. You can use coconut oil, ferment it, and make, gas to power your car. So this is why Nkrumah wanted Africa to unite, because he knew there'll be days like this when, if we don't come together, we'll be subservient to outside forces who will then dictate to us, oil and that kind of thing. So, in closing, Nkrumah was right all along, and this is why we need to unite and come together as a people. Tendamari.
Give thanks for that, brother Kwame. I think the Dengoti Refinery is already up and running. So yeah, that certainly is. Right, so let's go back to our guest online, Brother Leader Mbandaka, Brother Shakara. Do you want to respond to any of it that either Brother Kwame on the quiet one or Brother Kwame, or say on the line, said?
Tenamari, okay. So firstly, the last Brother Kwame is
hold on, there is a
correct.
Hold on, Brother Shakara, a call coming in. Let's just see who this is. Greetings, caller. You're live on Africa Speaks 946. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Nottingham at the moment, but it's Brother Akram.
Greetings,
Greetings, Brother Akram.
What's your contribution this evening?
Yeah, I want to throw another spin on this thing, okay? I want to break it down for you, right? The main reason, by the way, grand rising to you all before I...
Grand rising
to everyone, yeah?
Grand rising, brother.
Okay, before I start, remember some years back, they said that Hitler killed 6 million Jews, and the Jews say they want a homeland. They want somewhere to call home.
Well, they said that before Hitler did his thing.
Well, they said that before, okay.
Yeah.
But the point is that the whole idea is, if Hitler killed 6 million Jews, and they want compensation, they should have given them part of Germany, right? Isn't that would be justice, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's what should have happened. Now, they offered them Uganda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They refused. Why they refused Uganda? They said, no, we don't want Uganda. We want to go to Palestine. Right? Mm-hmm. They could have had more land in Uganda than they have in Palestine.
Yeah.
But they wanted to go to Palestine. Why did they want to go to Palestine? Does anyone know why they want Palestine and not to go to America? Because America have a lot of land. Australia have a lot of land. They could have gone to any one of those places. But no, they wanted to go to Palestine. The reason why they wanted to go to Palestine, the Zionists, the Knights Templar, right? Remember, they were beaten around in Europe, right? The Europeans did not like them. Mm-hmm. They were constantly being forced and beaten out in Europe. But when this new territory came up, which is America, many of them went to that territory and they found a new base. In that base, they decided, well, now we can control the world from there, right?
Right.
So they tie themselves into the system, right? Then they don't come out in the front, they're in the shadows. And they're caught pulling the strings from behind. Like what they've done with Einstein, the guy there that is
Epstein.
Epstein, yeah. Epstein. You see, they use him with this sort of thing, with getting those people.
But Akram, because of time though, because we're coming to the close, I'm going to have to try and guide you towards the point you really want to land with, because we are getting very short of time. We're kind of coming to the close. So if you're able to get there as quick as you can.
Yeah, well, as I said, because the point is, as I said, the end goal is Africa, but the point is, as Brother Kwame mentioned, about this situation of Somaliland, right?
Mm.
Right? Somaliland, the Jews are backing that. Why? Part again, breaking up of Somalia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And they will have if they get into Somaliland, they will then have easier access to the Arabian Peninsula,
mm-hmm.
because then they would be right there in the center, controlling that the canal, and look, they're just right across the river from them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is a part of it. Also, I will make a statement that George Galloway made many years ago. He said, South Africa is to Africa like Israel is to the Middle East. Ponder over that, right? South Africa is a bogey to the rest of Africa, the same as Israel is to the Middle East. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They were using South Africa to develop what they call a black bomb, which is chemical and biological weapon in order to destroy the black people. So you will go someplace and touch something. If a white man touch it, it won't affect him because his genes, he doesn't recognize this is not the right genes. If a black man touches it, it goes. And if you doubt what I'm saying, go to a thing that's called Anthrax Wars. There's a book and a tape which was sent out by a brother from, he's a white man from Zimbabwe who went and did his research. And his research pointed him out to the anthrax that South Africa was spreading in southern Africa. And anthrax can last in the ground for over 50 years. Just like they plant mines. The same thing. Okay? So the whole idea, have they stopped looking to develop that weapon to destroy us, or are they still doing it? We got to be mindful, my brother. We got to be on the balls with it, and that's why we need to be supporting the Sahel countries. We need to start going there, just like what we were doing when Ethiopia was fighting the Italians. We wanted to go there to fight. We need to go down there to join the armies that is fighting these people.
Okay. All right. Give thanks for that, Brother Akram. Let's see if we can get some feedback from our guest, Brother Leader Mbandaka, our Brother Shakara.
Don't worry. One of the major points is to back up what Brother Kwame, the second Brother Kwame, was saying about the petrodollar, which was initiated in the 1970s and meant that basically oil could only be traded on the international market in the dollar. And since then, we've been in a situation in which international trade in general almost always must be conducted in the dollar. There is much more that needs to be looked into and said on the extent to which everything that America is doing is directly or indirectly targeted at China. That is a very serious dynamic and a very real one. That when it's to the extent that whenever something is happening as far as America is concerned, we should always look at what is the China connection, and what are they trying to do in relation to China at this moment in time. But this is a part of another reason why we as African people are in a very precarious position, because of the extent to which America has the world tied up economically, and the extent to which our international trade and even the economic viability of our nations, especially in the Caribbean, are tied up with an influx of American dollars, which is the reason why tourism is such a high economic factor within our nations in the Caribbean. And we're never really going to solve any of these problems unless we start to seek actively economic independence. We have a ridiculous situation at the moment as far as the Caribbean is concerned, in which America is deciding for us whether we are allowed to maintain medical agreements with the island of Cuba. You know what I'm saying? And any nation that can be dictated to in that kind of way is at a serious disadvantage when it comes to serious issues such as war, and what our position, what our policies are, and being able to defend our interests in relation to war. And so all of these things, signal significant danger for African people unless we are sufficiently organized. And so I say in relation to Brother Akram's point regarding the alliance of the Sahel and so on. I do see that point. I think there is a necessity for us to have liberated zones and to be able to develop those liberated zones. What I suggest, however, is that the jury is out on the military governments to some degree. Positive things that they have done notwithstanding, but we have to put our faith in the people, and we have to put our faith in our capacity to organize along with our people. The world is becoming a very, very serious place, and if we look at the amount of things that have happened just this year alone, we will see that the geopolitics of this world are not going to become any better for African people. We will have no choice but to organize, and as Papa Garvey is reported as saying, that the black man will not know himself until his back is against the wall. Well, we're 2 inches from the wall right now, brothers and sisters, and so better we start organizing right now. And for Africans who are in places like Britain and America and France and Belgium and so on, our positions in these nations are going to become very precarious, and so we're going to have to start looking at our viability even for staying in these places in my humble estimation.
Can you give me, sorry to trouble you, brother. Can you give me just 30 seconds? 30 seconds, I want to bring something to you.
Brother, it has to be 30 seconds because we are coming to the close, so yes.
Yeah, it's 30 seconds. Do you know that part of the independence of our countries was promoted by America? Because they weren't at the table with when the Berlin Wall was carved up, right? And they wanted the Europe to release these countries so that they could be in control. And that is what you heard from the guy speaking in Europe the other night, saying that they need to retake over that part of the world.
Give thanks. I think Shakara actually more or less made that point earlier on in the show as well, actually. So yeah, give thanks for that to reinforce that, brother.
Yes,
Akram.
Yes, indeed.
Brother Shakara, there's so much things you just said that I want to respond to. We haven't got the time. Don't know how we're going to deal with it, but let's see how we go.
It's an ongoing, but it's an ongoing thing. But just to find it, I want to say specifically for Pan-Africanists, Pan-African organizations, we really need to grasp and become masters of the dissemination of information in this day and age. It's an information war, and one of the lessons that we can learn from the history of even the last 2 years is that even the Euro-American empire, as it currently is constituted, has to a significant degree had to concede that they have lost the propaganda war in relation to the war in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so we have to organize ourselves to the extent that as African people, we ensure that they lose the propaganda war as it relates to Africa and the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
That the masses of our people are clear that these are demons that should not be trusted, that they are exploiters of our economies, that they are murderers and rapists of our people to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that because even in relation to this Cuba issue, we have so many Africans in Jamaica, for example, defending this decision and conceding the fact that basically Jamaica just don't have no power to stand up against America. And that may well be the case, but it's not a reality that we should accept willingly. It's a reality that we should be fighting to change. And so one of the ways that we do that is by heightening the level of information among our people and providing our people with different options to background imperialism. And I'm saying as Pan-Africanists who have been studying these things for years, we have a responsibility to do our duty to our people and become masters of the dissemination of information.
Give thanks for that. On that note, then, let me ask you a pointed question, Brother Shakara. So what's happening up next on Kimbunga Media?
Well, I'm gonna actually ask to be able to upload this show actually, because I think it's important. I don't have a show scheduled for this particular topic.
Okay.
And so this might serve that purpose.
Yeah. Needs a bit of tidying up. Needs a bit of tidying up, but that's a definite yes.
Give thanks, and definitely want to get back to Haiti, want to get back to Congo, and want to get back to Sudan.
Definitely.
Yeah. So those are the issues that I'm trying to, and we've got some World Cup content coming as well. You know, the football World Cup is starting in June.
Is it going ahead?
Well, that's a good question. That is a good question, but you know, well, put it this way: whether it goes ahead or not, we will have content related to the World Cup.
Okay. Good stuff.
And the geopolitics of the World Cup. But the major program for this year is the development of the Ujamaa Black Group Economic Show, and the production of our pilot episode. And so the plan is to get that pilot out, demonstrate proof of concept, and develop the funds to do a full season. And it will be looking at the purpose of the show is to highlight and go in depth on many of the issues that we'll be discussing in this show. Looking at the geopolitics of so we're going past. Yeah, we need to start business and deal with financial literacy. We have to go past them argument there and actually deal with geopolitics and economics as a holistic area of people activity. Definitely. And educate our people accordingly. So that's the aim.
Give thanks and praises.
Sorry, Uncle Tunji. Let me just say to people just to do check out our last live show though on Cuba, and what is happening in Cuba. Very, very important. We were able to just have a beautiful conversation with two Afro-Cuban brothers, and so that we please do check out that conversation.
Yes, that's Kimbunga Media Sisters and Brothers via YouTube. Check that out. So I want to say, sisters and brothers, give thanks for joining us this evening. This has been Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Join us again next strong between 7 and 10 p.m. We'll talk it straight and make it plain. Coming up next is the one and only Dr. Aubrey Yakub Oliver with the Africa Rising show, taking the vibration into the morning. Around here we say, Tendai Mwari.